Today our topic is the authority for advance rulings. As you can see, the world around you is becoming a smaller place, as they say. Today there are transactions between non-residents and Indians on a regular basis. Even smaller businesses have started importing goods or exporting them. Now all of this involves international transactions between people in India and those outside India. Some of our tax laws, some of our amendments have left a lot to be desired because there is a habit of making retrospective amendments. Now, a non-resident might, before he enters into a transaction with an Indian, want to know as to what the tax liability is going to be. Because what happens is, say for example, a company like BSNL wants to import computer software for its telecom business. It wants to purchase software. Now, it wants to know whether sale of software is going to be covered by the Indian taxation laws. Why? Because if it is purchasing software, let's say from Nokia, then on making payments, would they be required to deduct TDS? Now, this is actually a question of the taxability of the foreign company to whom the payment is being made. If by chance BSNL does not feel that the income of Nokia is liable to tax in India and they do not deduct TDS, but thereafter the assessing officer takes a different view and levies tax on Nokia, and BSNL is treated as the agent of Nokia and a notice is sent to them for recovery of tax. And then will start the long-drawn process of litigation, going to CIT appeals, then to ITIT, then to High Court, then to Supreme Court, which will involve a lot of time, a lot of money, which is or could be avoided. Plus it leads to a doubt in the minds of the foreign parties as to what their liability will finally be, what opinion the AO is going to take. To avoid this, Finance Act 1993 came up with the concept of authority for advance rulings, which is one of the more innovative changes in the Income Tax Act that came about. Now, this is a separate judicious authority constituted with its office in Delhi, which has a retired judge of the Supreme Court as its head. Now, all it will do is listen to a question raised for the tax liability of a non-resident and give a written opinion. So now BSNL could raise a point with the authority for advance ruling saying that is the income of the non-resident chargeable to tax in India? If it is, then they will be liable to deduct TDS. Once a written opinion comes from the authority of advance ruling, that will be binding, not just on the parties involved, but also on the AO, which means tomorrow the AO cannot take a different view than what is given in the authority for advance ruling. Now, once that is done, before a transaction is entered into, or maybe during the course or after entering into the transaction, but before the matter is taken up for assessment, we already know what the tax liability is going to be, thus reducing litigation, reducing expenditure on the same. I think we've seen one of the famous cases that have happened, or the infamous, I should say, of the Vodafone judgment that came, wherein even after the judgment of the Supreme Court, there was a retrospective amendment, and there is still a debate going on which now involves 20,000 crores. That has caused a complete atmosphere of mistrust with the Indian government in the minds of the foreign parties who are likely or were likely to come to India. So AAR is one of those important authorities which today will be used more than it once was because of the nature of business that is being carried on. Now, what we are going to ask ourselves during the course of this discussion is, who can approach the AAR? Because, this gives rise to the thought that, look, I want to know whether I as a teacher can come or be covered by 44 AD.